Kathleen, can you give you all here to support us? Thank you. This is perfect. Exactly. Fine. It's good to see you. I'm glad you stayed. Hey, I didn't feel it. Did it hurt? This is just a case they want to shoot. I know. You know that's what it really is. You gotta scoot down low. you gotta scoot down low. Yeah. 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 Okay. Good evening, everyone. All right, be resolved that the Board of Education, the Board of Education hereby convenes from executive session. Yeah, the Board of Education hereby convenes from executive session. Yeah, the Board of Education hereby convenes from executive session. I have a face for radio. Okay. Oh, sounds good now, right? Yep. All right, fantastic. The public has been duly informed of this meeting in accordance with Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975 by posting at least 48 hours in advance a notice on the bulletin boards in Stevenson and Churchill schools, a notice to the Township Clerk, and a notice to the Passaic Herald News and the Progress. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we do a roll again? No. Okay. Okay, at this time, we'll open up the meeting for public comment on the agenda items. If there's any comments or questions regarding the agenda, this is your opportunity. All right, with nobody coming forward, we're going to go ahead and have a presentation from the Churchill School Art Club.
Evening.
Evening.
If you could bring your attention to the screen behind you, we have a little slide presentation. Bring your attention to the screen behind you. We have a little slide presentation, everyone. There we go. Good evening, everyone. My name is Adam Bonfilio. I'm the art teacher. Good evening, everyone. My name is Adam Bonfilio. I'm the art teacher. Good evening, everyone. My name is Adam Bonfilio. I'm the art teacher.
Now batting.
It still is. Your attention, please. Your attention, please. Your attention, please. No? 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 Right. No? Should I keep talking? Work it through? Should I keep talking? Work it through? Should I keep talking?
If you could talk loud enough.
I can.
I'm sure you can. We can turn the microphone off, yeah?
Okay. We're good? We'll do that. All right, I'll turn that off. As I was saying, my name is still Adam Bonfilio. I'm the teacher, the art teacher at Fairfield Public Schools, both Churchill and Stevenson. We have a little slide presentation we'd like to present to you in regard to what we're doing with the students at Fairfield Public Schools, going from starting at kindergarten, working through 6th grade. We have two of our students here to help us out, and I'll call them up when it's their time to talk. Next slide. We'll start out with kindergarten, and we start out with some basic primary and complementary colors, drawing simple shapes. They created a poster, and they just get a little bit of an understanding as to the very basic concepts of color in art. Next slide. This is a fun little kindergarten project where I I give the kids the first letter of their first name, and they just use various art materials, beads and buttons and feathers and just various materials where they work on fine motor skills, where they can just get a feel for using their hands at in a skilled fashion. Next slide. This is an example of a close-up example of one of their works. Next slide. And another one as well. This is a next slide. First grade class, proudly displaying their artwork where we did a fall tree. They were given a cutout of a tree form, and then they glued tissue paper to the tree to represent the colorful leaves. Next slide. Staying with the seasonal theme, it's always nice for the kids to be able to use different materials, and here they experimented with white charcoal on purple paper, where they did a winter scene with winter landscape scene. Next slide. Next slide. Staying with first grade, they were introduced to abstract design. And this is always a fun one because they get to scribble on the paper, and basically all they do is fill in the shapes that they created with their scribbles with solid colors. And we'll see an advanced example of this with some of the sixth grade work later on. Next slide. And in second grade, we introduced color theory, and there's nothing more colorful than clowns. Next slide. The only thing I have to do is try to keep them away from the scary clowns. They have a little bit of a tendency to want to go with. Next slide. Second grade as well, we introduced ruler skills, not necessarily measuring just yet, but having them draw a grid, a checkerboard type pattern, and then we drew a fish where they would use two different colors in the background and then two separate colors with the fish. Next slide. Next slide. Staying with second grade, and believe it or not, this is not a posed picture. This is we introduced still life to the kids, and they really found this to be a challenging concept, especially at such a young age. But they once they realized that it was fairly simple, they really bought into it and enjoyed the skill. Next slide. Moving to third grade, we introduced Cubism and the artist George Brock. I really start to try to introduce a little bit of art history starting in third grade, and this is the first example that we used, George Brock and Cubism. Next slide. Next slide. And staying with third grade, this is where we start to introduce measurement. The students were introduced to their ruler skills, where they would measure 1-inch strips on the paper and then decorate the strips with different designs and patterns and pictures. Next slide. Next slide. A little more art history, introducing Pablo Picasso and abstract art. Next slide. Next slide. I think most of us are familiar with the famous Love artwork that was created by Robert Indiana in the 1960s. He was a very famous pop artist, and so we introduced Robert Indiana, and the kids did a large-scale. This is 18 by 18. They did large-scale artwork where a lot of them did their names, but they could pick any 4-letter word that they would like to incorporate, and they really developed some nice artwork with this. Next slide. We introduced mosaics in 4th grade as well, where the students could choose any topic of their choosing, and they use cut paper to fill up the space with their design. Next slide. Next slide. And for our 5th grade, I'm going to introduce one of our 5th grade students, Jace Calli, and he's going to tell you a little bit about some of the artwork that the 5th graders are doing.
the fifth grade. Good. The fifth grade students did several great projects. They started off the cycle by creating a life-size goulash of their own body. The students relied on a classmate to trace the outline of their body, then decorated the area with pictures from magazines and drawings. The fifth graders also worked on two realistic drawings that put emphasis on details and shading. The first was a realistic drawing of our hand. The most challenging part of this project was to make sure that each finger looked like it belonged to the same hand. Finally, we were wondering why Mr. Bonfiglio was collecting soda cans. We found out when he asked us to draw them. This was a very challenging project, but they all turned out great.
And Jake's had some of his artwork that he'd like to show you. Very good. Thanks, Jace. And I'd like to introduce Adriana Scalia, who's going to present for the sixth grade.
The sixth grade students do many great projects that cover a wide variety of topics and art elements. We created a more advanced version of the first grade freeform abstract project, adding patterns, designs, and drawings within the shapes. In the fall, we created a tree with beautiful colorful leaves using various materials such as buttons, tissue paper, beads, feathers, and gemstones. As a part of the student growth objective, Mr. Bonfiglio taught us how to draw a self-portrait. The first example is our work without any instruction. On the second piece, we learned the correct placement and shape of the facial features. On the final copy, we learned how to draw hair properly and how to apply shading and create a realistic lifelike effect.
And Adriana has some work that she would like to show as well. Sorry. And again, this is the SGO,
This is the first one.
the first one without any instruction. The second one with a little bit of help.
This is the second one.
Wow, nice.
And then this is the third one.
Awesome. Nice, very nice.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Thanks. You can go to the next slide. Okay. And then finally, we're just going to cover some of the work that we've been doing with the gifted and talented programs, or the art club, I'm sorry, the art club. This is the first group that we had. We had 134 kids sign up for the art club, by the way, which is pretty incredible, and that was just at Churchill. So we had to break it into several different groups, and we meet for 4-week sessions. This is the first group, and what they did was, next slide. What they did was work on decorating some bricks in the hallway. So they did. Generally, what they were trying to do was create a positive message. Next slide. Next slide. Or representing some of the sports teams, naturally. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. And that's the kids working in the hallways. Next slide. Next slide. And then finally, the group that we just finished up with today is working on decorating ceiling tiles. And what we'll do is we'll put them throughout the building in the hallways or in some of the classrooms, just to again beautify the school. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. And that's it. That's our presentation.
Thank you very much. Those are, first of all the artwork is fantastic. I'm still on stick figures, so I haven't even gotten as far as you have, and I still need help. And the bricks and the ceiling tiles, that's a great idea. It really is, and I'm looking forward to walking through the schools and looking at that. Anybody else on the board?
Oh, very good work, very impressive. Nice ideas.
Thank you. We'll take 2 minutes if anybody wants to go ahead and go home and do your homework. I'm sure you have some homework to do, or maybe some artwork to do. And then we'll go ahead and reconvene in about a minute.
Great job, guys. Yes, great job. Fantastic.
Awesome. All right, for the rest of you who stayed behind and for those of you in TV land, now for the not so much fun part. Not going to see any drawings, but go ahead, Dr. Cicatelli.
Thank you. Under personnel, we have substitutes to be approved. Danielle DeStefano, paraprofessional, for the 22-23 school year, and playground cafeteria aid revision, Portia from 5 days a week to 4 days a week, retroactively to January 26th of 2023.
Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yes.
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 Under curriculum and programming, to submit the semi-program waiver to the county. B, professional development workshops, to approve the attendance at the following workshops and approve the reimbursement. One correction for the first one, for Jennifer Valenti and Dory, we're going to be using Title IV funds to pay for their attendance for the workshop. And for C, to approve the additional field trip to Churchill School for second grade move-up day.
Motion. Second.
Roll call?
Yes.
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 Under policy, to approve the second reading of the policies and regulations, as well as the abolishment of the following listed. For B, to have a job description revision approval for our technology network administrator assistant effective for the 22-23 school year. And for C, the HIB confirmation that was discussed in executive session on January 19th. Both of them did not satisfy the anti-bullying rights definition of HIB.
Motion.
Second? Mr. DePascal?
Yes.
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 In the business finance office resolutions, I'm asking the
The mic.
board to approve really items A through M, but I'm gonna go through them, I'm sorry. Can you hear me? Am I echoing? Okay. All right, minute approval for January 19th, public and executive sessions. I'm asking the board to approve item B, bills and claims for payroll, as well as February 15th, bills and claims, the 16th bills and claims, and the 6th. I'm asking the board to approve on page 6 of the agenda, the transfer of funds, as well as the secretary's report for the month of January, ending January 31st. Item E is a closure for the debt service account. It only has $15.06 in it. So I did run it through the auditor, and that's why I'm asking to approve it and just get it out of off our books. Item F, the board has already consented to the office rental modification agreement. The attorneys have reviewed it, and I believe the board had reviewed it in entirety. Item G is a copier lease. We went out for bid our copier lease was ending at the end of the year, and we did an RFP, and Atlantic Tomorrow Office won the copier lease for a 5-year renewal. Item H is we solicited proposals through our environmental consultants, Carlin Associates, and Guardian Contractor won it for the $21,500 for the mold remediation at Wilson School of the Gymnasium. I'm sorry, Churchill. In addition to that, we also simultaneously did through the Ed Data and our auditors, we're going to award Murray Paving this evening for the reinstallation of the ceiling tiles. So they're removing them through the mold remediation, and this company is going to install new ceiling tiles in the gym. That cost is $80,045, and Guardian, who's going to do the remediation, is $21,500. On the agenda tonight, item J is a transportation agreement with Sussex, and there are 4 copies. And Brian, I think Pat has you're gonna have to sign all 4 copies in that green folder for Sussex. The copies are for public transportation, field trips, and private transportation. And, okay. K is to accept the gift from a district whose donor wants to remain anonymous. It's for 8-compartment mobile backpack storage cabinet and a 5-compartment mobile storage cabinet for Stevenson School. Item L is our minimum wage has increased federal so our secretaries or substitute secretaries were paid $14 and now it's $14.13. And the last one, M, is the building use application for Chess Wizards at Churchill School for the dates that are listed on the agenda. So that was a lot. Sorry about that. A through M. I apologize. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
I'll second.
You can't.
Oh, I won't second. I forgot this. Mr. DePascal, second.
Okay.
Roll call?
Ms. Altai?
Yes.
Mr. Egan?
Yes, except for, hang on. G.
Okay.
And G, I'm a no.
Yes, I have that. Thank you. Mr. Frida
Yes.
and Mr. DePasquale?
Yes.
Excuse me. Is that it, Kathy?
That's it for me. Thank you.
Great. Okay, do we have any old business? Any new business?
Well, under new business, right now, just for the audience, we're in the process of putting our budget together for the 23-24 school year. We have some budget challenges ahead of us. Our tax levy could only increase by 2%, which really equates to $247,000. To me, that's a lot of money for myself, but for a school district and all the beautiful programs that we want to accomplish and the wonderful people that we have here, it's not enough. So we're struggling, and there's a very strong possibility that due to a lot of challenges, health benefits are up 11.6. Our all throughout the district, our contracts are coming up for 3.3 increases. We have our PERS assessment, which is an assessment that the state gives us, is up almost 17.5%. We have mandated programs that we have to run during the school year for our special needs students. So we're contemplating a referendum for next year to support our schools for structural improvements. And there's just various increases. And if, as a mother and as a housekeeper, I mean, I go to shop right now and eggs are through the roof. Everything we do has increased by hundreds, not even thousands of dollars. So the board has some challenges ahead. The next board meeting is March 16th, at which time throughout the state, we're going to submit a tentative budget to the county office. And we're going to see where that goes, but we're looking for support from the community in favor of a possible second question on the November ballot.
Okay, thank you,
Okay.
Kathleen. Any other new business? I want to table new business for a second, allow committee reports, and then come back to new business for one more thing. Any committee reports?
Yeah. We had several committee meetings in person and via Zoom in the last month. Buildings and Grounds Committee met to discuss the ongoing referendum situation, the pluses and minuses of that, the impact of changes that make on that project, the impact that the state's process of in approving our referendum and the amount of time that the state takes to do that is currently running in the 6 to 8 month range, so that becomes problematic in itself. And then also how that the referendum for renovations ties into the needs of the district expense-wise that Kathleen was just talking about, in terms of a second question on our budget, because that's not large enough to support the increases that we're seeing in various costs. And then also, the Building Grounds Committee has been working with the district for the renovation of the electrical switchgear in Stevenson, which is another project that has just seen delays based on, what's happening in society around us. Months and months to get electrical panels. Public service, is backed up. They can't get out to the site to do what they need to do. Transformers are, and it's funny that they like to say things are in weeks. So the transformer that public service needs to put in to support our infrastructure, it's just 52 weeks away. So I'm not sure why they don't, just come forward and say, it's a year out, but it's 52 weeks. Just, keeping it real with the 52 weeks. It's amazing how long materials are taking still to get for certain projects. And even you would think an entity as large as public service would see some increases or have some advantage in that area. It just doesn't seem to happen. Personnel Committee met, reviewed a couple of position descriptions. I think we voted on one this evening. And Finance Committee has also been meeting and looking at, again, some of the issues that are facing our budget. Our 2% increase on our $12 million budget is just not a lot of money to sort of pull that together. We were hoping that perhaps the state would allow us to make some increases in the 2%, as the state has granted that in some other public areas like municipalities, but they just haven't gotten around to school districts yet. So again, another piece of the puzzle that we have to look together and try to tie that into, as well as how the referendum will impact other projects that the district needs to do, just in terms of general wear and tear, and how can we fund those, through our operating budget, or do we need to, add those into the referendum to try and, again, keep the buildings up to standard. So those all three, they all kind of tie together, especially the finance and the buildings and grounds, trying to just keep that together. And those committees have met several times in the month of, at the end of February, beginning of January, and I'm sure they'll be continuing, because I know we still have a couple of meetings on the agenda. And then another piece of that is, actually, we'll be continuing the meeting in executive session. The Buildings and Grounds Committee, with the help of the board, has put out the request for an outreach committee. And so we have 30-something responses for that. Our goal is to try and get a parent in every grade level to work with us on the referendum and be able to spread that word and that information out to the community, and definitely the other families in their grade level, but also through the community as a whole. So the board members will be meeting this evening to try and select that group of people through the responses that we had received for that. So there's, we're trying to move forward, and hopefully we can get the information out there and build a good referendum, and hopefully get support behind it to get it passed.
In addition to everything Brian mentioned, as the liaison between the Board of Education and the town, myself, Dr. Cicatelli, and Kathleen had an opportunity to meet with our new mayor and business administrator, which we plan on doing every 6 weeks to 2 months, just to keep this side of the town in the loop as to what we're planning, because we feel it's very important that we have their support and use their guidance, because they've been extremely successful thus far in running our town. So that meeting took place, was a little over 45 minutes. It was very productive, and we plan on doing that more regularly in the future.
Any other committee reports? Okay, before we open it up to the public, I would like to go back to new business. If I can have 2 minutes of your time. I'm just going to read something here, so I'm not being disrespectful or looking at my phone. It's where I typed it. So if the staff that's watching, if anybody is watching, if you haven't turned it off by yet, if you can recall the first day back in September when we all came back from the summer break, I was president then, and thanks, Anthony, for letting me sit in tonight. I said this year was going to be about change, and I commented how change can be difficult, but change can also be positive and is a part of life. And I believe one of the strengths of Fairfield School District is that we are able to face the change that we are presented with, and we're always successful to allow that change to be positive. So with that said, it's bittersweet that I announced yet another change is about to happen. I will be resigning as a board member effective May, allowing the board time needed to fill the seat, my seat, and to continue with what we are doing in our responsibilities as a board. Just some background, I grew up in Fairfield, if you haven't realized that in all my 18 years on the board yet, and I raised my family here too. I've roamed the hallways of Stevenson and Churchill, and when you look back at those buildings, it was K-6 back then, and depending upon where you lived in town, it determined where you went to school. So that's how long ago this was. And just a little side note, nothing's changed since then in those buildings other than the paint. So the referendum, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, it's really necessary. I also remember when across the street in the parking lot in Churchill, it used to be the library before the library is where it is now. And it was the old one school building in Fairfield. So just to give you an idea. Graduated West Essex, and I was very prepared for West Essex because of the education that Fairfield provided, and we still provide that great education. So I just want to make sure that it's known that we are still doing what we did back when I was a kid, and we're still continuing that tradition. I always want to give back to the town, because they provided me with many opportunities, and I get, excuse me, Municipal Alliance for 6 years. I was on rec as a coach for 21 years, here for 18. I'll miss this. I didn't want that to happen, but I really appreciate your support over the years, and I never took it for granted. I'll be back to visit, and I'll make sure that things are doing as well as we are now, and the board members and administration, I guarantee that they will continue to keep the education of Fairfield as its priority. Thank you for all your success. With that said, I'll open it up to the public.
I'm not sure I want to go after that. Hi, I'm Tracy Ripa, 5 Scott Drive.
First of all, thank you so much for your service to our community. And I know we've known each other for a very long time, so thank you very much. The good thing is that you weren't in that one building. That was a one building school district. You just got to see it. So I'm here tonight because I wanted to express some concerns about the arrival and departure of the children in and out of Stevenson School. I'm only going to speak about Stevenson because that's what my main concern is tonight. Not sure. I do have a child in the Churchill School, but I don't have any issues at this point from that perspective. Just curious if we know the amount of time the students are sitting on the bus when they arrive at the school, and then how long they're on the bus prior to it to be departing. And I don't know if, anybody knows the,
I'm sorry. I guess I should have said, what we'll do is we'll take the questions. And
that's
then
fine.
we'll revisit, and then we'll have an opportunity for follow-up
Okay.
questions.
So the reason I ask these questions is I've spoken to several parents. We believe that the time allotted on the bus, not supervised, is causing safety issues to our children. That lack of supervision and the increased time, just on my son's bus alone, there in the last 6 months have been bullying, fighting, undisciplined behavior. We even had an incident of indecent exposure. All have happened in the last 6 months. And so I'm just very concerned about when these are kids that are kindergarten to second grade on that bus. And I'm just extremely concerned. I don't know how many kids are actually on the bus. So that's another one of my questions at any given time, with an aide or without. But we have a very vigilant protocol when the students are in the building. And I commend the administration and all of the board members for making the necessary changes to our school district to make sure over the last years that our children are now safe. I mean, you cannot get in that building without being, into the front office, showing your ID. I mean, everything we're doing is so vigilant, and that's all because of the administration and the changes that the Board of Ed has made. And so I'm so grateful to that because I feel like my kids are very safe once they're in the building. My concern is that we don't have that same care that is keeping our kids safe in the building that is on the outside of the building and in the busing situation. So again, those are my concerns about the safety. And what is the protocol that the school follows for notifying parents when there's an incident on the bus, and so that we can talk to our children, whether if they're directly involved or it's something that they've experienced. I know as a parent, I think it's very important to address my children they're not perfect, right? But I want to address with my kids if there is a problem that they're involved in, or I also want to explain if they've seen something or something has been experienced that they need to be talked to about it. I'm the parent. I want to be the person that talks to them. If I don't know about it or I'm hearing it, that's not the best course of action in my opinion. So again, I mean, I brought this up specifically because my son was hurt 2 weeks ago. I didn't get a call from the school other than the school nurse to tell me that she checked his heart, which was very concerning because I wanted to understand, well, first of all, why do you start with that statement? But the second thing is that he was headbutted in the chest, right? And so I feel like that should have been a call from the principal, somebody at the school in a leadership capacity that could have explained to me what happened. It was 2 hours, and I had to keep calling because the nurse told me call one of the teachers or guidance counselors. And so I called. It took 2 hours before I got a call back. I happened to be working from home. I was this close to getting in my car and driving to the school. She informed me she was going to check my son after an hour to make sure he was still okay. I'm not sure that really made me feel good, but that situation, I felt warranted a call to myself, and I would assume the other parent would have been called and notified. It's not the way I understand it happened, and I'm not trying to. I only know what I know. I know what was happening for me, but it's my understanding the other parent wasn't called. So that kind of leads me to like my next part, but I don't know, do you want me to pause here for a minute? I only have two.
No, go ahead.
Do you want to keep going? Okay. Wasn't sure how you wanted me to do it.
You'll hear a buzzer.
I want to hit that buzzer. So So I understand, based on the website, I can see the start times and the end times that are posted on the website. I also know that because of other parents, I work full-time, but I have other parents that are so gracious and pick up my son some days. And I do know that when they get picked up, they're being picked up at like 3:22 is when they're pulling out of the pickup line. The school hours on the website say until 3:42. I also know that on the school website, it says 3:27 to whatever time. There's a range for the last like period or end of the day. But if my child is in a car and on his way home at 3:22 and 3:27 is supposed to be dismissal or apparently on the website, then that means that's 5 minutes early, and that means that they started packing up probably 5 minutes before that. And as we all know, I'm sure everybody who's a parent has heard from one of our school district teachers that 10 minutes of reading a night, 20 minutes of reading a night is a game changer for our children in their education. We also know that I've heard from our teachers, children are behind, right? And so the fact that we either are picking a time that says, okay, let's get ready for packing our backpacks up and getting ready, to getting on into a car and or being put on a bus at 3:22, that means there's instructional time, and based on my assessment, that there's instructional time that's being missed. And so if it is only 20 minutes, that doesn't sound like it's a big deal one day at a time. But when you add that up across a week, across a month, across a school year, a district, it's a lot.
I'm sorry, so your question is,
Yep.
just to clarify, you're asking if the kids are being loaded onto the buses at 3:22?
I want to understand if they're being loaded on at 3:22.
Okay.
Are they being dismissed at 3:22? Because
Okay.
that's what time, if the pickup line, that's what time they're getting on the pickup line.
No, I
Right?
totally understand.
So I'm just trying to understand, instructional time
Yes.
is one question.
Yeah.
Safety on the bus is another, because if
Gotcha.
my son is on the bus and he's getting put on the bus at 3:22, 3:25, and it's not leaving the school, he doesn't get home till 4:05. So there's no way, this town is very small, there's no way if he's leaving, he's getting on the bus at 3:25 or 3:22, it's taking him that long to get to Scott Drive off of Sand Road.
Yeah.
So my thing is he sitting on the bus until all the parents pick up and then my child gets to leave on the bus? That's a long time to be on the bus. It's a long time to be sitting with just a bus driver and again, I don't know how many kids are on the bus. That's another one of my questions. But for a bus driver whose job is to drive the bus, not to supervise 30, 40 kids, I'm struggling with the safety protocols.
No, absolutely, and we'll answer and address
Okay.
all of those things.
Okay, so
Okay.
yes, so those are my two issues, safety protocols and how are we being notified, along with are our children missing out on instructional time on a daily basis?
No problem. And before, Sue, I'm assuming you're going to take.
I really have to speak to Dr. Tribuco. I mean,
Yeah.
these are questions that really should have gone to him first.
Yeah, and,
Okay.
and Sue, sorry about that, but this is my question, my first question to you while you were
Yep.
starting with all of these issues and concerns, other
Mm-hmm.
than coming to the board tonight, have any of these been addressed with the principal, which is usually the first stop in the process of getting the answers?
Right, I understand that, and I did not go to Dr. Tribuco prior to this. I literally, today, I'm gonna be honest with you, today, I drove to the school, waited in the parking lot to see when the first bus arrived,
Yeah.
and when the kids were let off, because again, I'm trying to figure this all out.
Yeah.
It just happened a couple weeks ago that my son was hurt, there was these incidents, we were not notified, right? So, fair enough, I probably should have went to Mr. Tribuco first.
We 100%, Ms. Rippert, we definitely want to address every one of these
Yeah.
issues. But from a board standpoint, a lot of this gets addressed by the principal. If it's
Understood.
not addressed with the principal, then it's addressed with the superintendent. And then if it's still an issue, then the Board of Education gets involved. So standard protocol, and we've gone over this in the past, and
Yep.
and I know you watch and tune in on the meetings. That's generally the route that, we.
Yeah, and I
Because unfortunately,
Understood.
I want to be able to answer some of these. I picked up my daughter recently as well, so I brought up some of these, questions myself. But unfortunately, as much as we want to answer these
Understood,
questions, we really have to talk to Dr. Tribuco because he's the one supervising that site.
I 100% understand why you have to go back to Dr. Tribuco. I'm very concerned that Dr. Tribuco did not call me directly when these incidents happen. If my son is hit in the chest and you're concerned about his heart, that's a serious consideration that a nurse
Absolutely.
should not have just called me. There should have been follow-up. And for me to notify that parent and not that parent not know about it, according to them. I mean, again, I'm not saying what happened or what didn't, but that's in my opinion, that wasn't handled properly. And there's been multiple incidences on the bus, and multiple parents have had situations where they had to deal with these things.
Yeah.
So I think at this point, I was just a little frustrated
Of
that
course.
I've been talking to parents and everybody's having these issues. I wasn't sure that going to Dr. Tribuco at this time was the right step, because obviously it's happening in multiple occasions.
And to be honest with you, we're experiencing this in different schools, different grade levels with different issues. But I think the message that we're trying to drive home is we keep hearing from the community that we're hearing there's a problem, but the community's not addressing it with the principals. Therefore, it's never reaching the superintendent, which is not reaching us. So if the community is expressing a genuine concern, a majority of the community or multiple community
At
members.
least the people that are on bus 5
Okay,
are.
so
I can tell you
so
that.
the most important thing would be,
Yeah.
since you're here and you're the spokesperson for that group, is to let them know that they have to address these issues with the,
Happy to tell parents that when we talk about it,
Yeah.
or if there's people that are having conversations. I don't want to speak for anybody but myself.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I'm seriously concerned to the point where my child does not ride the bus
Yeah.
at this point, right?
Absolutely, you
And
deserve
then,
answers.
You know, and we deserve answers, and we also, I mean, we are now in a situation where we're actually paying for this,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like my child gets on the bus. That should be a safe environment, and I don't know how you guys interpret that, but the minute I put him on the bus, he's in the hands of this district.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I feel like he should be in a safe environment, and I don't feel comfortable with that right now.
No problem. And we'll make sure we have all the questions written down. I know Dr. Cicatelli, I did as well, and Dr.
And
Cicatelli will
just,
get back to
Dr. Tribuco's not in tomorrow, so, and then with school not being.
He wasn't in there the day my son got hit either, so I
Okay,
just.
so that's good to know.
There was another, I had to speak to somebody else.
Yeah, we have a teacher in charge, so I need to figure out the information on that
I
incident.
can
I'll
talk
go
to you
back. Yeah,
offline
that's
and tell
fine.
you.
That's helpful, but I just wanted you to know that he's not in tomorrow, and then we're off Monday, Tuesday, so I don't want you to think, why haven't I heard from them?
Right.
You know, it'll be next week, but I promise I have everything written down, and we'll get you answers.
You don't know by any chance of the time the dismissal and all of that is happening?
It depends on, like in the beginning of the school year, they definitely go a little bit sooner because the kids are still learning the routines and trying to get them out. What they do now at this time, no, I don't have those answers.
Okay. I'm like I said, just concerned about the instructional time.
You have an answer for Stevenson?
I just know that they do, they have different dismissal times,
For
pre-K,
the-
kindergarten,
Right, depending on the grade level.
the upper grade levels. So I don't know what they are.
But kindergarten and all grade levels are on that bus, right?
Right,
So-
but they usually start with the younger, I mean, as Mr. Santana said, it's correct. The younger kids, they do pack up a little bit sooner. It takes them longer to get down, get settled, get their seatbelts on. So they do that. And then they go with the first graders and second graders. I just don't know what time they're doing that now, since it's almost March. You know, I'm not sure what time the dismissals happen at this point.
I can only tell you what I observed, and I observed kids coming and getting on the bus, and the pickup line happening at 3:22, cars starting to leave. All of those cars leave first,
Right.
and then the buses are released. Then those buses are released, it's close to 3:42. So you're talking like 15, 20 minutes on the front end, 15, 20 minutes on the back end. They're sitting on the bus with the bus driver, no other supervision. So I'm just trying to understand.
Teachers on duty outside, so they check that, but the purpose for that process is so that no child gets left behind. So they want the children, like if they're getting picked up, right, the parents hopefully are there, and if they don't show up, at least we have the bus before we figure out where the children are going. We don't want the buses to leave and now a child missed the bus. So that's why the students that are getting picked up by a parent, they go first. So to do that all at 3:42 is going to be impossible. But I have to talk to Dr. Tribuco to find out what time and the process as to what they're doing at this point in the year.
And you-
I'm sorry, actually, Mr. Santana.
I have one of the teachers that's actually on duty
Okay.
texting me because she's watching online. 3:21, all students that are getting picked up by parents are dismissed. 3:25, Tiny Treasures goes. 3:35 is when they call the buses, and no kids are on the buses until 3:35. And that's what I got from the person that's on duty.
Okay, that's not what I witnessed, but I get it, that's the protocol then.
And Officer Joe, you're out there as well, correct? Yeah, yeah, only because I see him there all the time.
Yeah, I mean, he does a
lurking
great job,
around.
he does a great job
Yeah.
of getting all those parents out of there.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a lot, I just didn't know if the new transportation is causing us to have to adjust in any way, or it's causing issues for the teachers and the administration to get the kids out safely and having to take more time away from in school and not.
By all
having-
means,
right.
if you have a concern, we want to address it. And if you're hearing that there's a majority of parents that are concerned, we want to hear from them as well, so we could address these issues.
Yep, I will follow up then. Thank you.
so much.
Be kind enough to sign in though tonight. Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else from the public?
Rose Lappers, 12 Bates Drive. Mr. Frieda, first, thank you so much for your commitment to our community, especially during the very challenging times when we did have the buzzer on people who had so much to say. So thank you for that. On the budget comments, I think we generally all understand the rising costs. We're all experiencing it. So appreciate the explanation and the transparency. I know it's all preliminary, but do you have any idea of an approximate shortfall, either a percentage or a dollar?
No, not at this point. We're
Okay.
just really waiting for state aid, and then we could release that. Not at this point.
Is that March-ish meeting timeframe or subsequent to that?
March.
Okay, perfect. And on the item I, which was the $80,000 repair,
Mhm.
are there any grant funds available for that?
Are there what?
Grant funds?
No, not for this one. This would come out of our maintenance or capital reserve account because it really doesn't start until the end of the school year. So they'll do the remediation the last 2 weeks of school, and then that'll go into July 1.
There's no grant funds available because
No.
we're doing it outside of the school year or because of the type of repair?
There's no grant funds available because it's not something that we submitted to the state to get a ROD grant, and that's why. We're doing it just through our maintenance budget.
Can we still submit?
No.
No, okay. All right, thank you.
Anybody else? I know, looking around. Okay, with no one else coming forward, we're going to go ahead and close out the public comment. Let's see, be resolved that the next meeting for the Board of Education will be March 16th with an executive session at 6:30 and the public session at 7:30 here at the municipal building. The board needs to go back into executive session to discuss, I guess I'm not even sure if it's contract, it's not really contract related, it's to go back and discuss the committee related.
Committee related.
Right, so we're, to discuss committee related discussions, which are personnel. So do I have a motion to go into executive at 8:28?
Motion.
All in favor? Yes. Aye. Anybody opposed? Thank you all. Have a wonderful evening. Everybody's looking for a house.
I can't.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.